Sri, you may proceed.
Yes, sir. Sir, should I go with the overview?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I extend my hearty gratitude to all the dignitaries who are present here. We have had a 2-day International English Congress that has merged two different colleges, one from West Bengal and one from Madurai, and has proved that literature works beyond boundaries and all kinds of binaries. We have had almost 100 participants amongst us, and at day one we had 36 papers. On day two we had 30 papers. We had 90 official registrations, and counting the dignitaries it is crossing even 100. 70 could present it, but we have all the papers with us. 40 people have already registered for their publication, and we are hoping to come up with the required anthologies once this academic proceedings are over. I have to say that we have had star-struck, sessions led by chairpersons. We had Dr. Kantimati yesterday along with Dr. Kartika Devi, who presided over sessions which talked about varied topics ranging from post-colonialism to feminism, from eco-criticism to postmodernism. People have talked about gender issues, queer theory, and they have taken up texts from the regional domain as well as from the British literature as well as American literature, and even Indian writings in English, modern workings of South Asian women. All these topics were rigorously discussed yesterday, and several new viewpoints, several new readings of old texts have come up. And today also, the morning started with Dr. Kumar's lecture on postmodernism. He was one of our invited speakers, and it was a brilliant take, a new take on postmodern critiques such as Lyotard, Baudrillard, and Jameson. The day was carried on by Dr. Jayanti, Dr. Bharti, and later on we were joined by Dr. Dhiravamani sir, and we had a number of presentations again, and topics such as modern mythopoeia, then British literature, and new renditions of revisionist literatures came up. And we also heard Dr. Prashanjit Panda from Guru Ghasidas Central University, who gave us an insight on eco-critical readings. And we really enjoyed the sessions because they were not just theoretical, they were very, very critically insightful, they were knowledgeable, and they propelled the listeners and spectators to think and rethink about topics which we thought we had already known. The fun part about Humanities Conference lies in the fact that it always tantalizes our discursive thoughts to newer degrees. The moment we think, okay, we know this, something turns up in a conference, or we go through a paper and we see that, no, maybe this is not the right way. Maybe there is another way we can look at it from. So I also want to congratulate Dr. Kavirasu, who was a chairperson and also one of the, pillars of this conference. And I myself had been a chairperson, and I totally thank Dr. Balakrishnan for this, who has been this, epitome of support for all of us, who's not only the editor of Bodhi, he is more than an academic support, and a very, very neutral person to whom we all owe a big thank you. And with this, I invite, just a moment, I'll just, with this, I invite Dr. B.J. GEETHA, ma'am, Associate Professor of English Studies, School of Social Sciences and Humanities, Central University of Tamil Nadu, Thiruvarur. Ma'am, over to you, if you could kindly grace us with the valedictory address.
Yeah, thank you. Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, one and all present there. It is my great pleasure in addressing this valedictory address on this international online conference on English language, literature, and culture. And I wholeheartedly thank my friend Balakrishnan and Dr. Kavi Arasu and the management people of Srinathai College for giving me this wonderful opportunity to address on a very important topic on language, literature, and culture. And these aspects like literature, language, and culture need to be defined again and again in order to arrive at new shades of meaning, new dimensions of meaning making process. So I take my pleasure in giving my address on cultural studies. So let me start. So the term culture is a sort of a great phenomenon. It is culture is a phenomenon, social phenomenon, and it encompasses the social behavior, the learned behavior, and norms found in a given society, as well as it encompasses knowledge, beliefs, art, music, law, customs, and habits of the individual in that given society. In a way, culture is acquired through a learning process of enculturization and socialization. So it is, in fact, it starts from the cultivation of environment to the cultivation of the mind. So it is actually a product. So it is a sociological product. It is a kind of, what to say that every human being make meaning and create meaning, and they involve themselves in this day-to-day activity. It is a kind of a product only. So culture is being identified with the human consumption of the cultural artifacts like art, music, food, sports, clothing, and all that define the human civilization. But the problem with this culture is that there is a pattern. There is a pattern even in the consumption of these cultural artifacts that determines or being determined by the process called the superstructure of in terms of a Marxian definition of a superstructure, and where the power plays a major role in order to categorize even in the consumption of these products. So it is not equally distributed among the people of all categories, but rather it is the power structure that plays a vital role even in the consumption of the products, and even the leisure times like, or even the cultural artifacts like art, music, cinema. It is not given to all the people at every time. It is being categorized based on the superstructure. So this is how the consumption culture plays a major role in categorizing people into different, classes, races, the gender discrimination. All that is the product of the culture that defines, this human consumption. And further, culture is neither aesthetic nor humanistic, but rather it is political. It is political. In that sense, every aspect of culture is being constructed. It is constructed politically with the intention of creating this categorization in the society. So that is why culture is neither aesthetic nor humanistic in consumption, but it is political. Significant concept, a cultural concept like a cultural construction, for instance, the concept like race, gender, class, am I audible to you? Yes?
Yes, yes ma'am, you are.
Yeah, yes. So as far as the cultural concepts like cultural construction, For instance, the concepts like race, gender, class, disability are created by people in order to organize their culture or society. For instance, the biological differences or the discrimination between man and women or the color and racial discrimination do not have inherent meaning within themselves. They cannot have meaning outside the society, outside the culture. It is the culture, it is the society that provides meaning to these aspects like a gender discrimination or a racial discrimination. So this happens within this the frames, social framework or the cultural framework. So outside this framework, there is no meaning-making process happening. So and all this happens through the medium called language. That is why even cultural studies is considered as a post-structuralistic aspect or a discipline. Another important aspect or concept of cultural studies is hegemony, which is derived or defined by Antonio Gramsci. So the authority, the dominance of one group or one culture over the subculture or the ruled, the colonized people is what hegemony. So hegemony is operated within this cultural framework. So for instance, the brute forces like police forces, prison or military forces, these are the influencing brute forces that is operating on the other or the colonized people. So this is how culture is. These are the ingredients of culture, we can say, that is being utilized by culturalist or the person who is operating these cultural framework in order to subjugate the colonized people or anybody who is coming under this divisions in the class structure, superstructure as subhumans or colonized people. So any discussion regarding cultural studies begin with Richard Hogarth's use of literacy. This is the famous work that cultural studies begins with this famous work. And he is responsible in coining the term popular culture. Also, along with Richard Hogarth, Raymond Williams' Culture and Society is a very important work which also need to be discussed in this valedictory session, and the establishment of Birmingham's Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. So these three factors are more important as far as cultural studies are concerned. And another important terms like Raymond Williams' cultural materialism and Stephen Greenblatt's cultural poetics and Bakhtin's cultural prosaics. These are again very significant concepts as far as cultural studies are concerned. And the approach of Raymond Williams is concerned, it was clearly post-structuralistic discourse. It is a discourse. Culture itself is a sort of a political discourse which is studied within social and material perspectives. For instance, when you read a novel, the success of the novel doesn't depend with the generic convention of the novel itself, but it depends upon the so many other factors like how it receives publicity, publication industries, the reception of the reviewers, the reception of the academicians, and for instance, the award, if it goes for award, the decision of the jury, the politics involved in award giving as well as the jury, and who says what. So all these determines, but the peripheral thing also determines the the popularity of the novel, or how the novel is being sought by so many readers. So it depends on all these factors. So this is how a novel is being culturalized. So enculturization or socialization of even the publication of a novel depends on these many factors. So this becomes a sort of a political discourse. And further, these mechanizations this mechanization that determines the success of the novel. For instance, in India, the tricolor flag, as well as the celebration of Gandhi Jayanti, are the cultural artifacts of political discourse, and they actually conceal the oppressive condition of nationalism or national identity. For example, these celebrations are a sort of a political discourse using language in order to suppress the group of people in under nationalism or national identity. For all this, for this political discourse or any discourses, language seems to be the medium of all these discourses, which defines the concept of culture. For instance, the cultural practice like giving a doll to a female child itself is a political discourse. Or we can say in other terms, it can be termed as a patriarchal discourse of femininity. So the dolls are considered as weaker sex and they are very delicate and need to be given such a choice. So grooming and care are the feminine aspect, the feminine duties, which can be fulfilled by giving such dolls to these girls, and while by grooming and taking care of these dolls, they inculcate these feminine aspects. So this is how the discourse of femininity is being constructed within the patriarchal society. So this is one example for how culture is being constructed. The feminine aspect of culture is being constructed. As I told you in the, these two elements like cultural construction and hegemony. These two are the significant concepts of cultural studies. So as Simone de Beauvoir has said, women are not born but became. This is how they became as women. So such constructions of femininity is the discourse of the masculinity, which operates and defines the power structure that leads to gender discrimination. For instance, another example I would like to quote here, that mall culture. You might have gone to different malls in your metropolitan cities where things are displayed. So this is an example of popular culture where things, the goods were displayed for visual pleasure, which instills the desire to purchase. So this superstructure called the mall is actually, we find so many posters and models, and this is a place we find so many good looking young, vibrant youngsters and good looking models, as well as attractive families and rich families coming, and they buy so many things. So the middle class family who visit such a place, and when they visualize such a displaced things, the things which were arranged for the gaze, that attracts them, and there is a sort of urge that emerge among this middle class family to orient themselves with a branded culture. So that happens, that kind of induce or instilling such a desire is happening. And once they enter into this world of mall culture, they identify themselves with this branded culture. And it is a kind of an invitation given to all sorts of people without any categorization here. And the spectacle of visualization turns into performance when one buys things. So there is a high drama of purchase happens in the mall culture. So this is how the popular culture is becoming so popular, and how the middle class families, they wanted to imitate and associate themselves with the branded culture. And this is a kind of advertisement that happens, performance, performance theory, how the goods, the products they perform themselves and make the customers to buy, the consumers to buy things. And there is another term which is associated with the mall culture is eclecticism. Eclecticism is nothing but a term which is associated with the globalization. So in the mall, you find everything. It is a world under one roof where you find the mixing of all branded items, where whatever is available, because we are living in a globalized cosmopolitan world where all things that is available, that you can buy in this single mall. So it is a multiplexes importing cosmopolitan experience and cosmopolitan culture. And in fact, this mall is, as far as in terms of a postmodern condition, it is nothing but hyper reality, a fantasy world, a historical and a secure postmodern world where the nature is even made, the natural thing is even made through artificial lightning. So the artificial lightning seems to be the natural world, and other interior decorations makes this artificial world look more natural. And this mall resembles a mini city, a cosmopolitan city that offers more security, more choices, and more visual pleasure to the consumers. And it is where the consumer identify themselves with the popular identification or popular culture or branded culture. So this cultural studies started, it has its origination with Matthew Arnold's Culture and Anarchy, which he wrote in 1869. So during his period, during this Victorian period, there was a sort of a celebration for every man for himself. That is, individual liberty was given much hype. Individual liberty, freedom, and expression was given much more hype. That society and anything that is in collaboration was not taken into account. So according to Matthew Arnold, this is uncivilized behavior. He wrote a long series of essays, Culture and Anarchy, which he published in 1869 during this or against this Victorian high spirit of individual spirit or individual liberty. He argued that those people who are ignorant of culture and acts as Philistines, he calls these people as Philistines who are ignorant of culture and art, which comprised the growing middle classes. The Philistines were the middle class Victorian people who were emerging, and they were religiously descendants who were obsessed with the thought of money making. So these people were obsessed with the idea of money making. According to Arnold, culture is a study of perfection. So what he felt is that the so-called middle class descendants who were, they ignored culture, and they were disrespectful of art, and they were disrespectful of culture. That is something uncivilized behavior. So he wanted to make people to be more civilized, more cultured, and culture, the study on culture and the knowledge about culture is an attempt for perfection. So that is what he emphasized in his Culture and Anarchy. Further, Arnold believed that wealth is merely a missionary, not greatness. But because during this time, the people of Victorian age, they rather thought that wealth is, it denotes greatness. It is not a mere missionary, but they associated greatness with the wealth, and that people who considered wealth as greatness are called as Philistines by Arnold. So these people need to be educated, need to understand the importance of enculturization. They need to perfect themselves. They need to change their attitude and behavior and outlook towards life and culture and art. So he did not agree or believe any one class like aristocrats, middle class, working class is right. What he insisted is that any one class opinion is being taken by the state is wrong, but otherwise what the state should do is that they should function taking into account the best ideas emerging from all the classes. The state has to take into account the ideas suggested by all the classes, take the best from that and function. The state has to function based on the best ideas emerging from all the classes. So no one class to be neglected. That state, if the state which functions based on operating itself based on the best ideas may emerge as the best culture. So that is what his emphasis as far as the state is concerned. He also advocated that society needed to regulate itself from excessive liberty because he felt that excessive liberty will spoil the cultural knowledge or the liberty will definitely spoil the it will make them as immoral and culturally indisciplined people. And also he felt the tradition of Hebraism, which was the tradition of Judo-Christian tradition, which they observed, need to be mixed with the tradition of Hellenism, which was rooted in sweetness and light, So what he suggested that there should be a mixture of Hebraism and Hellenism, and the concept of sin of the descendants the Philistines, the Victorian Philistines, should absorb sweetness and light. So Arnold criticized Philistines for believing that life was making money and religion. Culture is something beyond that. So they have to make all attempts possible to reach to perfection. So that should be the attempt of any person in order to become more civilized. And I would like to quote another work in order to define the concept of cultural studies. Francis Fanon's Black Skin, White Mass, which he wrote in 1958, where he defines the discovery of the blackness, the identification of a black man's self, especially in the chapter called The Fact of Black Man's, where he defines, where he analyzes the black man's consciousness. So that where even the blackness of the black man is being constructed. So that he discusses in the chapter The Fact of Blackness. He narrates the struggles of a hero who is driven to discover the meaning of black identity. Since it is an ontological problem of being of blackness. So the discovery of black man's identity is an ontological problem. But this discovery of ontological problem is the question about one's own being. So that discovery, he realized that he was an object. In the process of this discovery, the black man realizes that he is only an object among many objects. For instance, like a child, the child is modeling its behavior, its attitude after its parents and the siblings around it. Like that, the black man is an object and he understands and discovers about his own black consciousness or about his own negritude among all the others or the other objects that they are present there. So that is the limited choice that is given to this black man in order to, in the process of discovery of himself, in the process of discovering his own consciousness. So in this process, as I told you, that liberation from his objecthood is just a temporary one, because when he reached the white world, the white gaze fixed his identity. Look at there, a Negro is coming. So the black man finds it difficult to understand himself, discover himself amid his own other black people, because the world of black world is different. And when it is placed before the white man's world, or white man's gaze, it becomes something subhuman. So the white man's gaze problematized the notion of ontology itself of the black identity. So his gaze, when he looks at a black man and calls him as a Negro, look at there, mama, a Negro, he's very dangerous, he's an animal, like that. So that kind of a gaze creates more problem for his own discovery about himself. Fanon speaks about the limits of ontology, that is the being of blackness, since it explains the being of black man if and only if it deals with the existence of the white man. So without the white man, there is no black man. So what is this black man before pre-colonization? Those factors are the resources before colonization, or before they were defined by the white people as brutes, as uncivilized subhumans, as the other. What was the identification of this black people? Those resources were wiped out. So in the process of ontological search or ontological discovery, they were not able to found their own history, their own sources, because those sources are not available to these black people in order to arrive at their own ontological quest. So this quest remains limited or unattainable quest only, because the sources for them to prove their own identity is something that is missing there. Whenever any black man discovers his own identity, he has to define himself only with the presence of the white man. Without the white man's presence, the black man himself never gets any meaning, because the binary operation, the binary is operating there. It is because of the white man's presence that a black man is becoming a brute or subhuman, or the other, or the minority, the slave, the black race, the skin complexion, the skin color of black man becomes the bodily schema only in the presence of another complexion called white complex. So his position is so delicate. His position is something that it is a kind of cul-de-sac, where he cannot go further to make any more meaning making or discover his own, identity, which is a more complicated process for him because of the lack of any authentic resources. These resources were removed or wiped out purposefully during the process of cultural construction. The white man's hegemony and colonization has made complete damage to the black man's identity. So it is a more challenging process for this black man to identify, to discover his own self. So Fanon as a black man failed in many of his attempts to define what is this blackness stands for, or black consciousness stands for. So because he found himself that the process itself is so limited, handicapped, and it is unattainable and untraceable. The history of black man's primitiveness is something that remains unattainable and untraceable. So these are the challenges for some of the black critics and black writers they encountered in their own search for the quest for identity that is being described in Francis Fanon's Black Skin, White Mask. And further, he says that the white gaze has ensured that he must not only be black, but he must be black in relation to the white man. So this is the condition. So the color complexion, whenever the white gazes at the black man, he has to be black in relation to the white man's complexion. So that is the condition, that is the construction, that is the limitation of the black man that he encounters in his day-to-day life. So this is what Fanon calls black man's burden. The body of black man is his own burden. The body, the schema, body schema is what is his own consciousness. The color is the black color that he was very conscious about is his own burden. So the consciousness of the body indulges in what he calls a negating activity. So the black man, when he was conscious about his own body color, he is actually participating, or he is actually involving himself into a negating activity, which is nothing but, he arrives at a third person consciousness only. See, in his attempt to understand the I factor, I make it clear, the black man wanted to understand the I factor of himself, what I am, why everybody calls me a black man, a colored man, a Negro. So he makes all attempt possible in order to understand what is this blackness stands for. In the attempt, there are so many struggles he has to encounter because the possibility is something that is very challenged. There are so many challenges on its way to attain this meaning-making process or understanding what is this blackness stands for. What he arrives at, what he drives himself towards is that third person consciousness only. He is not able to understand himself. The I factor is not able to arrive at because he is being defined by his enemy called the white man. His complexion is being defined as black by the white man per se. So he has his limitation because I told you that the history is history of this black man remains intraceable. It is wiped out. It is politically wiped out. So he is not able to trace any of his ancestry stories. So the myth of blackness, the myth of negritude that he wanted to wipe out, that he wanted to redefine in post-colonial terms, that he wanted to retell his stories, that he wanted to rewrite about himself, remains as a sort of greater challenge for the black man because of non-availability of the sources about himself before colonization. So that is the challenge, he says that. So this activity, that is why Fanon says a negating activity. In this activity, the black man possess or he then to have this third person consciousness in relation to his self and the world around. Why he calls, Fanon says it is a negating thing because the structuring of one's self and the world he creates indulges in a sort of dialogue, indulges in a sort of dialectic between the body and the world. Since it is impossible now, he indulges in a kind of a negating participation. And the word Fanon implies that black body is bad. This is how the black body is being defined. The black body is bad. When black body is bad, he has to negate with this structuring world, which structures this identification between the self and the body. The self accepts, the body accepts, the consciousness accepts that black is bad. So this is the challenge, he says. And in this process of denegrification, so he calls this is a process of denegrification in the quest for self-identity, the sources of black man's customs, history, tradition, the stories, the oral stories, everything remains virtually wiped out. And that is why it becomes black man's burden. The body himself, the schema, the consciousness, his own self becomes his own burden. What Fanon wanted was nothing more than being a man, nothing else. He wanted to be accepted as a human being, nothing more than that. But that is being, not being allowed, that is not being given to him. So he says that I wanted to be accepted as a man among other men, nothing but a man. So this is the voice of every black people. Every black man wanted to be accepted as a man, not a black man. This word, the term black, is something that sabotages the entire identity of the this black community. So that takes away the good culture that was once prevailing with them, the identity that was with them, the consciousness, the I consciousness that was with them. Now, the consciousness that they possess now is third person consciousness only. That is why in the post-colonial writings, you might see that most of the autobiographies, they wanted to emphasize the I factors. Most of the writers, they write about their own stories. Much of subaltern studies, you find that talking back is the technique that they use in order to emphasize the I factor. So further, in this discovery of self, what Fanon concludes in this essay is that even the discovery, whatever discovery he is able to do, that discovery itself is an illusion, because it does not boost the self-esteem and confidence of the black man. So the black man, in the process of his own discovery of his I factor, however he might have arrived at the third person consciousness, however he might be unattainable, his attempt remains unattainable and intraceable history and whatever it is, whatever is able to attain, that never boost his own self-esteem and confidence. It actually tells that a Negro is not only an animal, but he is also bad and ugly. So this is what is again and again a black man, understands about his own consciousness. And in order to destroy the Negro myth, as I told you, there is a need to establish authentic self-identity to prove the white man that he was mistaken. And so that is Fanon's attempt in his own attempt in discovering about his own self, about black identity. Now I would like to throw some light on Shakespeare, that how Shakespeare was one of the celebrated dramatist. Even today, he never becomes a stale, and even today some his plays remains vital, and they are more important, and they are reconstructed and deconstructed in order to arrive at all aspects of meaning. As far as the cultural studies is concerned, Shakespeare's many of his historical plays underwent a lot of cultural new historical interpretations were given. So that is another claim that how Shakespeare wanted to celebrate or focusing or highlighting on high culture in all his plays. So he was an epitome of celebration of high culture in his works. And I am taking here Othello, and I'm going to discuss how cultural studies can be applied to this Othello. One critic, Sinfield, has written a text called Cultural Materialism, Othello and the Politics of Plausibility, where he speaks about how Othello is again and again being termed as the other, the barbarian, the erring barbarian of a Shakespeare's hero. So everyone in the play, they narrate some stories. Everyone, they were able to tell stories, plausible stories. Othello also tells so many stories.
Hello, madam. Are you there?
Yes, yes. Am I audible to you? Yes.
Madam, yes, madam, you are audible. You can proceed. You can proceed.
Yeah, yes, yes. So Othello exploited the stories. He conceived so many stories regarding his military expedition, regarding his military achievements. He was narrating those stories to Desdemona and the Venetian Senates in order to lure them, in order to attract them. Of course, he is a Moor. So the otherness is being brought again using this cultural construction, and how the stories that he narrated becomes plausible, and how he is able to win over the love of Desdemona. And Iago, when he was like, he was able to what to say, that he was able to destroy the love between Desdemona and Othello by telling that she once deceived her father by marrying you. Once befallen, there are so many possibilities are there to befall again. So by telling like stories, so everybody tells stories in this play. Othello tells stories, Iago tells so many stories. It remains a sort of a probable impossibility, as Greenblatt has suggested. So the probability of the stories becoming plausible is what the new critical approach, or this cultural approach is given to this particular play, that how Iago was able to convince Othello by stating that, I quote from the text, "She did deceive her father marrying you, and when she seemed to shake and fear your looks, she loved them most." So what he suggests here is, once fallen, it is possible that she would fall again. So this is how he convinces Othello. And how Othello's barbarian, he is termed as erring barbarian, how he erred here, how he trust the story of Iago is that because he is a Moor, he is the other, the barbarian. So Othello believes this is a story of Iago. Not only that, he acknowledges another powerful story, that one presents himself as erring barbarian. When others called him as erring barbarian, he proved when he killed Desdemona. He self-proved that because he cannot behave otherwise, he has to behave in that. You should have to behave like that. And he, by killing Desdemona, he proved himself that he is an erring barbarian, and he classified himself as erring barbarian. And that is another interpretation given to how the femininity, again, the discourse of femininity is being constructed here, that Desdemona is being celebrated as Desdemona rebellious when she rebelled against her own father in order to marry a Negro like Othello. So she was considered in a romantic way more rebellious. But again, the cultural construction is reminded there in this particular text of Sinfield, where Desdemona's feminine or limited feminine liberation is being reminded that once a woman marries, however powerful she might be, she has to yield or she has to control and accept the supremacy of her own father in the beginning and her husband, and later on to her son. So this is the kind of limitation of power structure is being operating in this play, that a rebellious Desdemona becomes nothing but a doll in the hands of the patriarchal character like Othello, Iago, who were operating power and constructing stories and telling stories, and the play ends with the death of Desdemona. And again, as far as other Shakespearean characters are concerned, Othello suffers under this stigma called the other. So the othering or erring barbarian is something that remains, something inevitable, something that you cannot remove from. In the case of other heroes, Shakespearean tragic heroes, their fall is being celebrated. Their fall is considered as a tragic flaw. But here, the flaw of a tragic hero is being associated with his race, is being connected with his race. That he committed this tragic flaw because he is a barbarian, because he is another, not as a kind of a glorification given to other Shakespearean heroes. So this is where culture, the construction or the cultural operation is being, a determinant condition is there. This is what Lloyd has said, the condition, postmodern condition. So this condition is operating there, and the boundaries of which is something that he cannot get away from that. He cannot get out from that and operate himself. So among the Shakespearean heroes, he could not get the kind of celebration that other heroes had. He could not get because of his racial connectivity, because of his racial association. And one more work I would like to cite here is that George Orwell's Shooting of an Elephant. This is a very small essay, Shooting an Elephant. George Orwell, when he was appointed as a police officer in Burma, he narrates his own autobiographical experience that he encountered in Burma. And as an imperial agency, he suffered under a dichotomy. He suffered under the split personality. In fact, he has to implement the the dictation of the imperial power, as well he has to negotiate with the native people also. So that was a kind of critical situation that he has been encountering, that his own identity undergoes a lot of problems. So he has a kind of, as Homi Bhabha calls, that space or hybridity. That is what he evolved into, and he has to make adjustment with both this imperialism and the native people, and which forces him to, or which creates a sort of an abstract personality only. So he was not, evolving himself into something very concrete, but rather He evolved himself. His identity is something very abstract that it becomes a sort of a trap within which he is being, trapped himself, and he's lamenting on. If you go through that essay, you might have come across how he is lamenting about the imperial injustice against the native people, and the struggles and the agony of the native people, and how he cannot blur his own identity, or his own, he is nothing but an agency of the imperial power, and he becomes a muted spectator, and sometimes he has to function, he has to implement the dictations, the whatever is being told to him, and he has to do that. So he becomes entrapped himself within this kind of an identity, or a third space, or hybridized personality, that between his culture and the native culture. He made all attempts possible to break these boundaries. He wanted to break away these boundaries. This disidentification with one phase of life moves him towards to another phase of life. It is a sort of a transformation that he found it very difficult, and in the end he killed this animal. But before killing this animal, the kind of the compassion that he had towards this elephant, because no longer it seems to be very dangerous, but the native people compel this police officer to kill this animal, because it remained as a sort of an very dangerous species for them, for their children, because it has killed one of their local people. But he had some soft corner for this animal, and but of course he yielded to their request, and he kills this animal. And how the flesh of this animal is being taken away by another group of tribals. So these experiences, he narrates how injustice happened to the native people, and he cannot within his body, he is not able to operate both as an imperial agency and also possessing a sort of a compassion for this native peoples. This is something very, very very annoying for him. And he as an white man, he feels sorry for this native people. So this is another sort of an example that I wanted to share with you. And with this, I would like to conclude my talk, and I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Balakrishnan for giving me this wonderful opportunity to speak about the cultural studies here, how culture is something that need to be redefined, because this culture is very problematic phenomenon that need to be understood very well. And I thank all the organizers for giving me this wonderful chance and deliver in this valedictory session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. First of all, your lecture was brilliant, and it was really, really nice of you to thank the entire organizing body. And I am tempted to thank all the participants who have been with us since yesterday, and all the organizers and all the plenary session stars, as I should say. And special thanks to Dr. Kavirasu, who has been not only a chairperson, but the wholesome organizing support. Double thanks to you, sir. And Dr. Bala, I have no words left to thank you. What you have done for everybody, it was just beyond my imagination. I would now like to just a moment. I would now like to call Mrs. SEEMA, Associate Professor and Head of English. SEEMA ma'am, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here. I'm with you.
Okay, she is the Associate
Yes.
Professor and Head of English, N.M.S.Sermathai, Vasan College for Women, Madurai, Tamil Nadu. SEEMA ma'am, kindly grace us with the vote of thanks so that we can have a wonderful closure from your part.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you very much, Dr. RITUSHREE SENGUPTA. And I'm always at your service for gracing my gratitude.
Oh my God.
And
Thank
good
you.
evening, one and all. And it is time to express the real gratitude, heartfelt gratitude to all the veterans, guests, and very many special thanks to Dr. Ritu and Kaviyarasu sir, and all the resource persons and the chairpersons of the past, that is yesterday and today. And it's really a blessing to stand before you all to submit my gratitude. And it's a privilege also to me. That is, one must always wonder how great God is, and so am I, because for arranging and such a great conference. As one day itself, it's a great Herculean task. It is a 2-day conference, and that too, it is a double Herculean task for not only for us, especially for Bala sir and for Kaviyarasu sir. And these two strong pillars are always being supported. I have been watching all through the seminar, conference, and they were constantly promoted and supported by Dr. Ritushree. And so, how should I thank you, ma'am?
Ma'am,
And so
you don't have to thank me. We just hope that this only strengthens the bond between Tamil Nadu and West Bengal. And we should have
yeah, of
many more
course,
of these
that is
sessions.
that itself is a cultural hybridity. I should say
Definitely,
that.
definitely.
Yeah. And so it fills the heart to warm, and did not forget to quote. That is a word from Charlotte Bronte. Let me submit my gratitude first to Dr. Santosh Kumar, Principal and Secretary of the institution. That is Principal and Secretary, Patrasayer, Mahavidyalaya, Bankura, West Bengal, for his presidential address. Let me come in the order to submit my gratitude. And for his presidential address, sir has quoted how literature mirrors a human life and contributes in corresponding society. Sir, it was really a true words from your lecture. Thank you very much, sir. And I thank Mr. Kaviyarasu, Professor of English, and Vivekananda College, Agatishwaram, for his excellent, as Dr. Ritushree says, it was a wholesome performance from Dr. Mr. Kaviyarasu. Thank you very much, sir, for your cooperation and highlighting this auspicious 2 days program. And then, as Shakespeare quoted, "O Lord, that lends me life, lend me a heart replete with thankfulness." With replete, I thank our resource person, Isaiah Brito Raphael. Sir, your speech was eminent consolidation, highlighting the global trends in cybernetic culture. It was a complete snapshot of all scenario in the cybernetic culture. Thank you very much, sir. And I should thank Dr. RITUSHREE SENGUPTA that for chairing a session. Keep your eye open to all the mercies is a quote. But while chairing, that is a session, one must keep his or her eyes open to look at the uniqueness of the presenters. That is how Dr. RITUSHREE SENGUPTA is, has been. And thank you, ma'am. Such a charming chairperson we have, and master of the ceremony we have all the 2 days. Thank you very much, ma'am. And Charles Dickens quotes thus: "Reflect upon your present blessings, of which every man has many, not on your misfortunes, of which all men have some. Under the sun, we are blessed with one such person who is a blessing from Almighty, and that is none other than our resource person, Professor Dr. John Shaker, head of the department of the American College, Madurai. I thank you, sir, for your kind motivation. You are the one, always you are the transformer, creator, and whatnot. Whatnot. I wholeheartedly thank you, sir, for your enigmatic speech. And I also thank all the resource persons and chairpersons of the day too. And my sincere, some are born great, some achieve greatness, some people present itself is a blessing and promote happiness. One such woman is Dr. Gandhi Madi, Assistant Professor of English, SDNB Vaishnav College for Women. Ma'am, hats off to you, ma'am. And it was a great privilege for us to have such a great personality. I should say that a women chairperson and women resource person hits the target always. I thank you, ma'am. And last but not the least, the last valedictory resource person, it was a astounding speech, ma'am, Dr. BJ GEETHA, ma'am. Really, it was a very nice cultural exposition, I should say. It's not only crisscross examination and the judgment of the culture. You have made a point where Iago loses, and you have made a point how that Iago's wife is looked upon as a negative image. It was really I was wondering how could people can do such a great motivating speech as this. And I was really enjoying your speech. As a woman, I always want to be a unique one, like as you people, like Ritu Singh and BJ GEETHA ma'am, and hats off to you, ma'am, too. It was
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Great speech, I should say, that I should not have missed it. And blessings on me. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I should say that these 2-day conference is arranged with the help of my management and the constant support of my principal. And so I thank my management and my principal, Dr. D. Kartika Rani, who is not with us, but their blessings is always with us. And after having enough meal, who would think of the provider of the meal? Nobody will think of the provider of the meal. And so is a human being. And so is all the mortal. And if I'm not thanking Dr. Bala, curse will be on mine. So,
ma'am, if I may interrupt you just for a moment, there are three people working as the backbone of Bodhi Journal. It was my fault that I could not give you the information personally, so I'm really sorry for that. But I must mention Miss E.G. Priya, Miss M.K.G. Ashwini, and Miss M. Harita, who have worked relentlessly day and night without even taking a Christmas break. And without them, we would not be here today, ma'am.
Yes,
they're the
ma'am.
backbones of Bodhi, so a hearty applause for them, please.
Yeah, I also want to thank them for this for their untiresome work. Thank you very much for those people who stand a strong support to make this conference a great success, ma'am. And Bala sir, you are really an epitome of hard work. You are really an epitome of sincerity and what not, Bala sir, I should say. Thank you very much, sir. And lastly, finally, I should thank my colleagues who stood before me, and after me for making this one a grand success. And I thank my student participants, all the presenters of the day and yesterday. And once again, I thank one and all. If I have forgotten anyone to thank and to submit my gratitude personally, please pardon me and accept my gratitude. And it is it's not these 2 days were not the days of others, it was the day of ours. And so let us once again join together in the future too to mark a great function as this. Thank you once again for all the participants, for all the resource persons, for all the people who joined hands with me and RITUSHREE Singh and Bala sir. Thank you very much once again. Thank you, sir, ma'am, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Should we call it a day, Kavi sir?
Yes, I think so. Thank you, Dr. RITUSHREE, for wonderfully mastering the 2 days ceremony. Okay, and thank you, Dr. Bala, and thank you the hosting institutions, all the members of the hosting institutions, the resource persons, and the participants. So I think Dr. Bala, I think we can wind up the meeting.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
The feedback
Thank you.
form is there. So all of you, please kindly fill it up. So
Thank
these
you,
are the
Kavi.
links, right? On the message box.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So should we leave the meeting, sir?
Yeah, we can.
I hope to see you
Thank
all
you.
very soon. Goodbye and have a rocking new year.
Thank you.
Yeah, same to you, ma'am.
Yes, I will. What a year
It must
ending
be
we
a
have had.
rocking New Year for us too.
For everyone.
Sure,
For
sure.
everyone.
Goodbye.
Let 2021 be a successful year. Thank you.
Yeah, let this COVID disappear and let me
Yeah.
get back to South India for a long trip.
Yeah. After a
You're
long,
welcome.
long gap.
I was in Bangalore, no, so I keep missing South India.